Hi, I'm Zealand, and I have something I would like to talk about, which is coincidentally the new name of this channel, which is incredibly fun. But seriously, we got all the Manchester City Arsenal game stuff out of the way. Not that that was a chore. That was the best game of the weekend. I know people often wonder if I want to talk about, do weekend reviews or stuff. Not really. We talk about things that I find interesting or that you send me that I want to talk about, basically, and that was the most interesting game of the weekend. But I do get scores from all top 5 leagues and European competitions into my phone, so I generally keep up to date with what's going on. That was just the match that drew my attention. But there's something else that came out of it that I have personal experience with. I just wanted to talk about, not in a way where I'm going to take anybody's fun away, though. That is a fear. Not a fear, but it's not something I want to do, right? Because memes and jokes and banter are what make fandom in the internet super, super fun. And that's the reason that I mindlessly open a bunch of different apps throughout the day before swatting my phone out of my hand and calling 911 to come arrest me, so I stop opening apps on my phone and actually film a Zealandism video, for example. The process usually takes about 5 hours, by the way. Thank you so much for asking. But now we're talking about Rodri. We are talking about Rodri. Because I make a lot of jokes, right, on this channel, some off the cuff, some that maybe you guys have heard and you've gone, I don't know why he said that. But I really, generally speaking, never try to go into it with a mean-spirited way unless I feel like that mean spirit is being exhibited by the person that I'm joking about. If somebody's being a giant piece of shit, then I don't feel particularly bad about calling them a giant piece of shit, right? But I don't try and catch somebody in the crossfire and degrade them if I can help it. Am I perfect? No, I make multiple videos a day, and most of the time I'm just delirious by the time I'm recording them. But in this Rodri situation, with my personal experience, I feel like I'm going to try to inject a little human decency. I'm just going to try to explain to you what's happening, okay, so that you understand, because I realize the majority of people are never actually going to understand what I'm talking about. Now, I have the good fortune to have torn my ACL. I blew out my knee. Just blew it out. I was playing fraternity league basketball in college. I hit the sickest crossover of all time, which I confirmed by the fact that even my knee got juked out by the crossover and decided to go the opposite way. I heard a thunderous pop and collapsed in a heap to the ground. I've been watching sports my entire life. And before I hit the ground, hearing that pop, knowing what sport I was playing and the change of direct, I knew exactly what happened. I didn't need the doctor to tell me. I've been watching sports for so long. I knew exactly what just happened. I called my mom from the floor of the gym, and I think I was a sophomore in college at the University of Virginia. I called my mom laying on my back in the gym, teammates kind of around me and everything, just waiting for the ambulance to get there. And I basically said, hey, I've been calling with a lot of good news recently. And she goes, yeah. And I was like, this is not that. True story. I actually did it that way. It was not the best idea. It's like, yeah, my knee popped. Not good. Going to go to the hospital, whatever. Rodri obviously just experienced a similar thing, right? He tore his ACL in the match over the weekend. And I don't know if it was just where I happen to be looking, but there were a bunch of people. Maybe there's a line, maybe just for me, where there were people kind of celebrating it, making him on the ground in agony, their laptop backgrounds or whatever. Not just. I would honestly not even be offended by relief, right? Because that's almost flattering to Rodri, where you go, oh, wow, we got lucky that he went down, or that's going to make it easier for us, but actually reveling in kind of trying to make fun of him for this. This type of injury is different. That's what I'm going to try to explain to you, because I played 5 sports in high school. I played sports all my life. I have picked up every possible injury. I've broken my face. I've broken my arms 4 times. I've broken a finger. I've sprained multiple fingers. I broke a toe, broke my nose. I got a severe concussion. I've sprained my ankle so many times I have to wear an ankle brace when I run. And I blew out my knee. Out of all of those injuries, there are 2 that I believe are life-changing. 2 that really because look, when a player gets hurt, right? When a player gets hurt, they disappear and then they just come back. Right? Rodri's just going to go away. And like 8 months later, he'll just spawn back in and everybody go, oh, Rodri's back. Yay. What you don't realize is what happens in those 8 months and what happens every day from now until Rodri's end of days. His life is going to be different. It is. My knee has never felt the same. Ever. I wake up almost every morning and it's sore. If I sleep a particular way, my knee will hurt so bad, I will wake up in the middle of the night. The pain will wake me up and I'll have to change positions and then it'll be extra sore when I wake up the next morning because I happen to have my knee in a position that was putting strain on the surgical repair or something. Right? It feels different forever. Right? If I'm going to play sports, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to do that, I have to do 10, 15 minutes of yoga to put the WD-40 on my knee to get it to kind of loosen up into work. And that's I'm just talking about the lifelong kind of effects. By the way, the other injury that I feel like is fully life-changing is a concussion. You cannot make fun of somebody going through a concussion. They need to be protected. Because that is the only injury where you're not able to process information in a reliable way, which is what makes it incredibly scary because you don't know exactly, like when you're reacting with a human being, you know what they should be capable of understanding. That is stripped away from, in a concussion, and every concussion affects people differently. You can get one, and then your brain is literally never the same, right? And so that's the other injury, but I'll leave that to one side. That's not what we're talking about. Those 8 months. Right? Not just the lifetime of effects. The fact that Rodri's life just changed forever. Right? The fact that from the moment that happened, Rodri's life changed forever. He's going to have a big old scar. He's either going to be missing a piece of his patella tendon, a piece of his hamstring, and if he rolls which he's not going to do, by the way, because there's a chance it wouldn't take. You can get a cadaver ACL, but there's a chance that your body doesn't accept it and rejects it. And you have to get another surgery, but they won't do that. They'll either take patella tendon or hamstring, which means he's going to have tendonitis in one of those things. I took my patella tendon, so I've got the big scar on the front of my knee, right? Half of my knee is numb. It's been numb since the surgery. I'm never going to feel that half of my knee again, which is just, kind of a weird aside. But this is different. Okay, when you sprain an ankle, when you break an arm, unless it's one of those kinds of catastrophic type injuries, it comes back. I know. I mean, unless you sprained your ankle a billion times like I did. Now, I'm not saying you should make fun of people that are doing that, but there's a different level of life-changing capacity to that injury, to the vast majority of injuries, where maybe you got to limp around for a few weeks, or, I got to really stretch it out, or maybe I even have to get a surgery and wear a cast for a month. But eventually, my arm's going to be back. They re-break it, they do a surgery, even if it's really nasty, you get pins in your arm. I had that once, and then it comes back. Right, but this knee is different. In the recovery, that 8 months, it's hell. I mean, it really sucks. It just sucks. It's after the surgery, too. I don't know if you guys realize this. I saw somebody saying they saw Rodri walking around 2 days after he tore his ACL. That's normal. The really difficult thing about tearing your ACL is putting it back. Once you tear it, you can walk around a day or two later. Because the ACL controls lateral movement. So as long as you're going up and down, it doesn't matter. It's when you try and plant and change direction that your leg would go like that because there's nothing holding it in place. But you can limp around super easy. It doesn't hurt at all. If you've just done your ACL, you can walk around no problem. I was a tour guide at UVA. I gave a tour with no ACL before my surgery. It's after the surgery that it is just brutal. Okay, first of all, after, it's a major operation, right? Major operation. You go under, they slice you open, they cut a piece of you out, they sew it into the middle of your knee. It's rarely just the ACL, so you got meniscus or some other tendon that they got to fix too. Mine was my meniscus. Okay. My mom had to fly up for a week to take care of me. I was on major drugs for a while. Because it, there's just a giant slice in your leg that you can feel. I mean, it's vibrating. If you've never had major surgery, it's not like just because it's major surgery, you don't feel the fact that there is just a giant cut. It'd be, like somebody just taking a knife and doing that, right? This is really significant, massive. Okay, and then you start rehab. Once you get over the initial pain and it heals up enough. Now, what happens a lot of the time, and I don't know exactly what's going to happen in Rodri's situation, is because of the amount of numbing that is done, and because of, and this is probably going to, going to give some of you guys the heebie-jeebies, but the amount of numbing that is done, the amount of inactivity that is done, and the kind of reattachment of tendons that goes on, the muscles don't really work. And what I mean by that is literally, if you're laying there and you look down, and it was my left leg, right? You look down and you go, lift your left leg, like your brain does that. You go, it doesn't move. It does not. You are more likely to shit yourself than make your leg move. You have to relearn and rewire your brain to fire those muscles, because that connection has been dormant. Look, I'm not a friggin' doctor. I don't even know exactly what happens. I just know that it's common because it happened to me. I did that. You go to physical therapy for an hour and they just go, try it again. And it doesn't work. You can't lift your leg, and you are trying as hard as you can to tense that leg muscle and lift it up. So they attach these pads. It looks like something, some sort of U.S. torture device here, right? They attach these little pads that stick onto your muscles, and they shock your leg. Every time they're like, think about lifting your leg, and you go, and then and your leg just goes, wow, like shoots up, and that hurts too. Because they have the input is just all over the place. So the first time they did it, they nearly tore my quad because they did it too much, and it just turned into a rock, and my leg shot up like a freaking ballerina dancer. So you go through that for weeks. And every time you go into rehab, you're getting your leg shocked. You're getting a little shock therapy. Right? And eventually you get it calibrated and you're kind of able to start doing leg lifts, and then you have to start doing leg lifts every day. Okay? And then you start to do other workouts, one-legged squats, and you have to do them all the time. It is, and I realize for a professional athlete that is not as unusual, but this is where you start to enter the other realm. And this is the months-long process of, okay, now your foot's flat on the table and you got to push out. And it is just unbelievably painful. It feels like your leg is just going to pop off. And they insist that it's not. But you enter into this other realm, which is the mental. You have to start pushing off of your leg. I can't explain to you, after going through this months-long process to get to that point, I think 2-3 months into it was when I started to get to this point where they put you on this sliding board, and you put these socks on and you slide back and forth, and you get to the left one, you push off. Right one, push off. Very light, very low friction. The fear, just the terror of pushing off for the first, it's the first time I pushed off that direction in 3 months, right? That's hard to comprehend if you've not been through it, right? But just pushing off in that direction for the first time, you just feel like your knee's going to explode again, because all you've been doing is babying your knee for 3 months. And in my case, babying my knee and failing classes, because I did not get a good GPA that semester, but that is beside the point. I graduated with a respectable GPA, and that's what matters. And a double major, for the record. So I used to have a lot of useful knowledge up here. Now I'm just talking about knees. But it is a truly arduous process, to the point that I remember thinking strongly about if I ever wanted to play sports again, as somebody that had played sports my entire life. Because if I tore my knee again, I didn't know if I'd be able to do it. I didn't know if I would be able to go through that again, particularly knowing what I was going to have to go through, right? And this is coming from somebody that flew through the rest of those injuries, right? Was never phased, throwing myself right back in there at the earliest opportunity, right? Seriously considering whether I wanted to put myself in a position where it was possible that I would have to go through that again. That's how overall, just physically and mentally traumatic and draining what Rodri's next 8 months is going to be. The only reason I played sports after that, initially, now I play them because I enjoy sports again, and those thoughts have mostly left my mind. But now they're back. I'm just kidding. They are always kind of there, especially playing basketball. When I am going left to right, it is always like, okay, good, it held. Every time it's like, oh, good job, knee, you're still there. I wanted to get back on the horse. I didn't want to be afraid of it, but I was petrified. I was white as a ghost. I had every sort of knee brace I could find anywhere on that knee, and I went out and played flag football, and it was terrifying. Like, terrifying. Some of the most scared I've ever been in my entire life was getting on that field to play a rec league flag football game with the knee sleeve on, the knee brace on, and I'm like triple checking it to make sure it's tight. I'm triple tying my shoes. I'm stretching for 2 hours before I go into the game, doing yoga, like making sure that I was going to do everything I could to make sure that I was okay, but I knew I had to get on that horse again or else it was just going to haunt me for the rest of my life. It sucks. It's awful. And I realize that the majority of people will never get to, and this is a good thing, experience that type of life-changing injury. But when those players disappear for 8, 9 months, a year, Terrell Malassi is another great example that comes to mind. They're not doing nothing. They're not sipping Mai Tais on their couch, just kind of waiting for, some sort of long-term bruise or broken bone to just heal. Right? Their entire world has been shifted and revolves entirely around clearing different physical and mental pain hurdles to get themselves back on the field. So I just kind of wanted to let you guys know that. Because I feel like if everybody knew what Rodri was going to have to go through, if everybody knew what that kind of experience was, that they wouldn't be so blasé and celebrating it. Sure, a few assholes would be, but you get the idea, right? I feel like a lot of the world's problems could be solved by putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, right? And if somebody, if you're ever worried about offending somebody, put yourself in their shoes and see how you would kind of react to it. So I wish Rodri the best in his recovery. Obviously, it sucks that happened, and just make sure that they don't turn up the shock pads too high when they fire your leg back up, because that is a weird and unique pain. Just tell them to start low and kind of go up from there. That would be my advice. So yeah. Stretch before you play, do some yoga, stay flexible, and keep them ACLs, brothers. Keep them.